All right, thanks, Greg. And we are back after our recess period, sort of like school, virtual recess, right? So hopefully everybody had a chance to go out and get on the monkey bars or the merry-go-round. And now we're back. So first on our agenda this morning, this afternoon, is a discussion on the city of Westminster, which I think some of you remember we were briefed on in reference to assuming their overnight dispatch responsibilities over there when it comes to law enforcement. So for that, I guess I'll hand it to Scott first, or Dennis. Do you want to, I guess, Scott, is that Scott, Dennis, Jack, Scott, Dennis, whoever. You give it to Scott, Dennis.
Yeah, I hand off to Scott, but Scott's got to unmute.
Yeah, I guess that does help. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity. Commissioners, first thing I want to make very clear is that Mr. Brown, Jack, and I are appearing before you this afternoon in response to a request that was made by the city of you as the county board. This is not an initiative that began with Mr. Brown and I. That said, there was a previous approach made by the city of Westminster that asked the county about the possibilities of assuming their full police department dispatch radio communications operations. My description is, I believe all parties realize that what was necessary for that to happen just wasn't feasible. The staffing necessary, the additional demands, et cetera, made that quite difficult. Accordingly, the city has asked for a revised ask, and that is a request, and that is, would we be able to, we being the county, be able to assume those operations between the hours of 2300 or 11 p.m. and 0700 or 7 a.m. for that 8 hours. Now that would be 7 days a week. So today, Jack and I are here to share with you that in response to that ask, we're here to share with you what we believe is critically important or essential for us to have if you as a board were inclined to do this. Specifically, 7 days a week, 8 hours per, that's 56 hours that we would need to have covered. And because, as you are all well aware, we have for several years noted a staffing issue. We do not have a current capacity to be able to absorb any additional calls for service or demand for service. So any new demand for service would require additional staffing to compensate for it. 56 hours of coverage cannot be covered by one employee. It would require two people. And we have, through a number of metrics, determined that at least one additional person would be needed on duty at the time that this additional workload would be incurred for us to be able to do it safely and properly. And I want to be very clear, one more person on duty, but it takes two employees, two people to provide the hours of coverage we need. One 40-hour-a-week person simply cannot do it. Even if there was an agreement to pay that individual continuous overtime, you'd still be expecting them, if you only hired one person, to work 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day. And that simply wouldn't work. And the reason why that's critical is because we do not have the ability to absorb any shortage. So with that, Commissioners, Commissioner Frazier, hopefully I've described that correctly, what the request is. We have looked at a number of metrics to give you gentlemen some context. We used air time. How much time the respective agencies talk on the radio to get an idea to try to gauge what we're currently doing versus what this ask would represent as far as an additional workload or demand. And based on using cumulative air time, when there's also a number of CAD or computer dispatch events generated, number of times officers, quote unquote, push to talk to actually key up. And in every metric we've used, it comes to a 50-60% of what we already experience on the sheriff's main talk group. So that is not a small ad. That's a significant ad. Some additional context, we compared what that would be compared to the other three municipalities we currently provide a service to. The city of Westminster's activity, based on our metrics, would be about 150% of all the other municipalities combined. So like a 3 to a 2, if you will. So that's the basis for what we're saying. Again, as the brief says, Mr. Brown and I we do not have a recommendation as to whether you should or not. This is an ask of the city, of the commissioners. We feel our responsibility was to share with you what we feel would be necessary if you choose to do this. So with that, Commissioner Lance and Commissioner Frazier, I hope that sums up the ask. And if you disagree, sir, please say so.
I agree. That was a good job, Scott. Thank you very much. I never disagree with you, Scott. You always do a great job
Thank you.
publicly. But anyway, the ask is coming from the city of Westminster to take over the 911 calls only the emergency calls. All other calls, they've talked to the sheriff's department about handling the non-emergency calls, and I believe that they're working out agreement with the sheriff's department. So the only ones that they're looking for the county to handle between 11 at night, because I'm not military, and 7 in the morning are the emergency 911 calls. They're asking now. Ms. Wyndham can correct me, and probably is just about to, but I believe the county or somebody has the obligation to handle 911 throughout the county. I think that's our job to do that. If I'm saying that incorrectly, correct me in the right way to put that. But I do think that this falls in our laps, which is why the city is asking us to do it.
And Commissioner Frazier, if I may, that's an excellent point. We are obligated, and we currently do provide the 911 service. Jack's Shop answers, if things go the way they're supposed to, every call to 911 that originates in the county. What's being asked is what happens after that call is answered, and that is the dispatch of their assets or units and the assistance they need in order to handle, something that's been assigned to them. I will respectfully say that legally, we're not obligated to provide that service, but as we've all discussed, if no one else provides it, it doesn't sound like there's many options to do it other than to simply turn a blind eye to it. And Jack's staff would have no recourse but to refer the calls to like the sheriff's office. Is that correct, Jack? That's what you see would be your option. And then just imagine, the consequences of doing it that way and their units not getting direct communication. So the 911, absolutely correct, sir. 911 is an obligation of the county, but what happens after that, whether it's transferred to a secondary PSAP or whether Jack's Shop is empowered and given the assets to handle that, is a closely related but a separate function.
Okay, so is Westminster currently conducting all of their 911 calls, both emergency and non-emergency, at this time? Yes. So
Yes, Commissioner, they are currently a
okay.
operation.
Yes. So what is the catalyst for them coming to us now to taking on the 911 emergency calls?
Commissioner Frazier, would you like to address that, sir?
What the city of Westminster is saying is that it's in the interest of public safety. They think it would be handled originally by us than through them. There's also there's a staffing, also looking at staffing for themselves. Let's be real about this. Would have to hire or put on or keep on, however you want to look at it. I think they would actually have to hire additional personnel because they don't have enough right now to cover their evening or their set 11 to 7 shift. They would have to hire someone else. They're looking not to do that. Therefore, it saves them money. So I'm looking at it's probably both things, saving the city of Westminster some money, and they're looking at a smoother transition, I guess it would be to call 911 and be dispatched through our people and everything handled with us. They've also agreed to, if we move forward with this, to paying whatever it costs for the first year for this fiscal year. Because as I explained to them, it's not in our budget. We don't have any money to hire 2 additional people, as Scott has already said, right now. If they want to do this, they have agreed to give us sort of a grant. So it's just money given to us to pay for these two positions for this year. Next year, we'd have to include it in our budget.
Okay, so next year, we already have our budget established, as we all know. Um, my, my thoughts are, and not to be, pretty, I don't know, well, just straightforward on this is, if this is a priority for the city of Westminster for complete coverage of 911, both emergency and non-emergency, I'm trying to figure out their resources, their time, people, and money. And I'm not sure why they're not having this conversation with us today, except that they wanted you to carry the water or Scott to carry the water on this discussion. But, a lot of the questions and discussion, I think, has to be applied to the leadership of Westminster so we can understand what is the actual risk, in doing this, and then how do we make this arrangement? I mean, if I'm all in favor of continuing to look at this and having the conversation with Westminster to make a strong arrangement or agreement, but I'm not so excited about saying, yes, let's do this when we are resource limited at this point, within the 911 center. I mean, we're going to put ourselves in a bind. And then for them to say, well, we'll give you money. Now, I apologize, not them. For Westminster to share that they would give us a grant of some sort for 1 year is really difficult if they want us to take on the funding from that point forward. And we don't have that in our budget at this point. So at least that's my upfront thoughts.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ed, but I believe Councilman Cavazzi is watching this right now. Hopefully he is. So perhaps he could call in and he could talk. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know the how that's done or not done, but if he could call in, or if the mayor's watching, they could call in and we could ask them questions directly. From what you're saying, Ed, that would be very helpful for you at least. So I don't know if they're watching, but if they are, and I don't even know how to call them, they would have to figure that out. And maybe someone from our staff will reach out to them and ask them to give us a call.
Did you have a discussion about ongoing funding for this year after year instead of just 1 year? I mean, I see where they wanted to centralize things and maybe make some things easier for 911 one spot, but it needs perpetual funding.
We didn't have any discussion about ongoing funding. It was just a 1 year. They were going to fund it because, as I explained, it's not in our budget right now. However, I believe they're looking at it as what we do for Hampstead and what other municipalities. Scott, you know which ones they are. There's a couple other municipalities who do this exact same thing for with no charge. So they're looking at exactly the same way, and they believe that we should be picking this up. And I hopefully one of them is on listening so they can call in and come in for this. We have had, I think, two or three discussions about it. But I'm not the expert on what they're doing or what they're thinking. I'm not. I just can tell you from what we've talked about.
Hey, Scott, what two jurisdictions are we covering the 911 calls for emergency only?
We are currently handling Manchester, Hampstead, and Mount Airy Municipal Police Departments. And again, Commissioner, I apologize, but we keep using the term 911. We're handling 911 for everybody. What Jack Shop is doing is they're handling the assignment of the calls to the units and supporting them for those 3 municipalities I spoke of. The Tawnytown and Sykesville departments are affiliated with Maryland State Police, so they get a similar support, but from that entity. And then, as we speak, the city of Westminster does it for themselves. So when Jack's folks receive a call to 911, if it's fire rescue EMS, it stays in-house. If it's for law enforcement, if it's for the sheriff, Hampstead, Manchester, or Mount Airy,
I'll cut you off for a second, Scott, because the mayor has texted me on my personal phone saying if he'd like to be called in, if you give him a number or something to call. I mean, if you can, I can text him right back and somebody can give me that number and I can let him know. That way he could be in on a conversation.
I'm getting it. Just give me a second.
I didn't hear what was said.
I said I'm getting it. Just give me a minute.
Oh, okay.
I heard option B was all the midnight calls going to Commissioner Frazier's house to handle.
Only if you don't want them answered.
Okay, he needs to call. Can you hear me? 1-571-317-3122. And then the access code is 339-844-629.
Okay, hopefully he got that because I didn't. But he's watching it. I have 1-571-317.
1-571-317-3122.
Okay. 1-571-317-33122.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm forwarding this to him.
And then he needs that access code. Did you get that?
Okay. Go ahead with the access code.
339-844-629. And they were aware of this meeting, and we did, just so you know, and we did try to remind them yesterday.
All right, I sent all that information to the mayor. And it says delivered. So
Hello, Commissioners.
there we go.
Fast.
Who says
Okay.
technology work?
Yeah, I've been watching the meeting, but I'm a couple minutes behind, so I may have missed the last minute or two of discussion. So just a heads up. Am I live?
Yeah, you're on. You're on, Joe.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, I know Mr. Rothstein mentioned something about us not being around. We engaged absolutely how we thought we should. You know, with you, President Lanson, our Commissioner, Mr. Frazier, and we've had multiple meetings with Commissioner Frazier and on your staff, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have as to why we want to do this and why we think it's the right way to go. There are two components, as you mentioned, cost, and there's a safety component that there was a recent issue that we kind of knew would happen at some point, and it happened sooner rather than later, and that's what kind of drove us to act on this when we did. So I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you have.
So any questions for the mayor now that we've got him on here?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, would it be possible to have ongoing funding for this?
Well, so we'll talk about ongoing funding. I mean, I know that you do provide this service for other municipalities free of charge, and I know that one of the ways that this is funded is the 911 fees on phone bills. I know that money goes to state and county governments. Municipalities don't receive any of that 911 funding. Everybody that gets a phone bill has that 911 charge on there, and I know that you guys get that to help pay for this kind of thing. So we don't get any of that funding. So you guys are being funded to handle this, and I understand that we've handled dispatch for quite some time. But like the other municipalities, we'd appreciate some help. We're not asking for you guys to take over dispatch 24 hours a day, but during this period of time and night, we get I think it's less than one call an hour on average, and it's really inefficient for us to staff it. So it doesn't make sense for us to do that, but I don't think it makes sense for us to fund your dispatch either. I mean, I do believe this is your responsibility. We've handled it for a long time, but I don't think we're asking for a whole lot from the county to help with this.
Mayor, I think you made some very valid points. Why should the citizens of Westminster be treated any different when it comes to 911 service calls and the financing that we do get. So it seems like I'm supporting this.
And I don't think, look, I'm not, I don't think I'm being unfair. I'm not trying to sound like I am. I know that, the ratio, the number of calls that we get is a lot higher than the other municipalities, but I also know that the amount of tax the county collects from, the residents of Westminster is a lot higher than other municipalities as well. So I do think that when you look at it, when you look at tax dollars collected and effort and money spent to provide the same service you're providing them, it's probably pretty fair. I don't have those exact numbers, but I would imagine that it's probably pretty close to being in line. I understand that, we're a bigger municipality and we have more calls, but we have a lot more tax dollars coming your way too from our residents who, as a municipality, they're being double taxed for some services. So, I think it's fair that we do share in providing these services.
As shared, when I talked about your priorities and resources, what I was talking about was what is associated with the risk in you either keeping the role that you have and or transferring it to us, and also what was the catalyst for the request now? Is it a lack of positions and fills for the required positions that you have? I apologize. That's what I was referring to when I talk about the priorities of the city in determining what is the best course of action.
Yeah. So there are two two reasons that now is the time we're coming to the commissioners with this. I think it's something that we've kicked around for a little while, but we wanted to make sure that we did it in the right way. We didn't want to drop anything in your lap. We wanted to have discussions, help figure it out, help plan, help a smooth transition when we came to you with it. And again, there are two reasons. There's the financial aspect, which is clearly there, but the safety aspect, I'll address that first. So what happens is when we have dispatch at night, we end up with one dispatcher, and we don't get a lot of calls. On average, it's 1 an hour. However, every now and then, you get 2 calls simultaneously. Something doesn't get picked up. We had an incident recently, and I won't get into too much detail, but we had an incident that took called into our dispatch, and our dispatch was handling an issue that had to coordinate multiple police officers, and I think other agencies at the same time. And then while that was happening, we got another call that came in that was not handled the way it needed to be handled. So it's a rare event. It's something that probably isn't going to happen every week, every month, maybe not even every year. But if it happens, it could cost someone their life. These are emergency services, so we're not in a position where we could double staff it. To double staff a position like that for 1 call an hour, it's just something you can't do. So we're running a very inefficient operation between 11 and 7, and that's why we're coming to you with this time period. We already worked out the sheriff, the non-emergency calls, but we need help with this one piece. So it's not even efficient for us to have one person there, much less a second. So it does create, that safety issue. If, in the rare event you get 2 calls, two very serious calls, we're in trouble. So there's that. And then the financial aspect, it was just a matter of that happening right in the middle of us experiencing a little turnover. And it kind of just, it all happened at one time. So it was the right time to talk, because we need to plan on our end as well, what's going to happen. And we wanted to start the conversation sooner rather than later.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, that makes good sense. And, being efficient is definitely something we're all striving to do within the county and the jurisdictions. I guess my question to Scott or to Jack is, when we picked up the responsibilities of the other jurisdictions in the same respect that we're trying to pick up with Westminster, did we have to add personnel into the operations, or were we able to assume those responsibilities with the folks that we already had? And then with that said, you're telling me we have to add 2 people if we need to pick up, or if we decide in the direction of picking up the Westminster responsibilities. Can you talk through that?
Commissioner, when the other smaller municipalities were added, there was existing capacity to allow us to do that. We don't have that additional capacity as we shared for a few years. We are, for lack of a better term, maxed out. I mean, that is ultimately the difference, is we do not have existing capacity that would allow us to take on any additional workload. And in this case, the city of Westminster request.
Commissioner Wance, I value your opinion on these subjects since it's your wheelhouse. I'd love to hear from you on this.
I thought maybe I could stay under the radar on this one. And I don't really want to stay under the radar, but I've got some thoughts and some challenges with this. But I'm going to be very careful here because, with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, one of your council people already threw me under the bus on this subject, and I didn't appreciate that. And I'll just let that alone and stop there. But you know, I think.
Do you want to share? Do you want to share what happened there? I'm not familiar with that at all.
Yeah, I'm not going to share that over the air. I'm not going to do that now. You and I can talk.
Well, I
later,
mean, you shared a little bit, over the air already. I mean, I hope that that's not going to keep you from weighing in on this. This is a very serious safety matter, in addition to the financial matter. So I hope you're not going to hold that as a personal reason not to.
No, and I would like to think that you know me well enough that I wouldn't do that. So I'll just leave it at that. The bottom line here for me is, and listen, I worked over there for 12 years, so I know how challenging the job of dispatching law enforcement can be, because as I've said before, unlike fire and EMS, for the most part, you dispatch those guys and gals and they're off and running and they do their thing. But with law enforcement, it requires some really one-on-one following them through the incident, which is why Scott is advising that they're maxed out, because this is going to take at least 1, 2, and I would question whether it's going to not even take 3, because what happens if the 1's off and the 2's not there available? You're going to need. I think you're going to need more than 2 in order to do this. I also question the statistics of 1 an hour in the city of Westminster. I think there's probably, on average, and we asked for those numbers. I don't know if we got them or not, but I think I can't imagine that that's the average, 1 an hour. Can you share that, Scott, or not?
Yes, Commissioner, absolutely. And it's how we look at it. Calls that are generated, a call for service, someone calls and requests the assistance, is a different category than something it's self-initiated. Let's say, for example, a traffic stop or something that the law enforcement officer initiates versus someone dials 911 to request the assistance. So that's where the numbers go back and forth, whether it's the limited number that may be initiated by a caller to 911 versus the activity that occurs independent of that, as say, let's call it active policing. So that's where the numbers are varying, candidly. That's why we see low numbers as far as asks through 911 versus something that's initiated as a function of actively in-person policing.
Hey, Scott, at the end of the day, what is the cost?
And, I'm going to be clear. I think.
Apologize. Keep going, Steve.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Well, no, I was going to listen. At the end of the day, for me, I think it would be in the best interest of Carroll County to have everything centralized at our 911 center, including operations and all of it. But it comes down to finances. And, I question whether 2 people are enough and we've debated this already because we identified we needed to add dispatchers about 4 or 5 months ago. And I voted against it, but you guys elected to put somebody else in a position somewhere and left the dispatchers alone, which I was against at that time. But I'm not here to say that this shouldn't be done. I think it should, but it all comes down to numbers here. And I quite frankly don't know where in the world we're going to come up with the money. And I appreciate the fact that the city has graciously reached out about, helping with finances for that first year. That's wonderful. But it's year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and beyond where we've got a problem. And you all know what our 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 years look like right now. And I don't even know, Jack, is there any possibility at all in an incident such as this where the emergency numbers service board would be able to assist with any kind of financing on it in where there's a municipality in a county that is requesting assistance? Has that been talked about in your meetings at all?
Not that I can relate to what you're asking. So the numbers board, through the trust fund, pays for hardware, software, training, those types of things. They do not pay for people. The people costs come from the local fee that the county collects locally.
Okay. So for me, and Ed, I'm finally getting to where you asked, what are the numbers here? We need to add at least 2 dispatchers, at least minimum 2 dispatchers. And I think we're realistically looking at 3 or 4 to pick up the amount of work that we're going to have over there. So what are the numbers, Ted?
Remember back to our conversations about the need to add people before. And I think we were talking about roughly $300,000 to add four positions. It's actually probably a little bit less than that, but just for talking purposes, 2 positions, $150,000, or 3, 225. And I just the 911 fee came up. I just want to remind everybody that the revenue we receive from the 911 fee does not cover all the costs of providing this service. We still have to put general fund dollars into it.
Even with the increased 911 fee, which is why the board was reluctant to add the additional dispatchers that have been identified as needed as we stand with the current services offered.
Yeah, so we did ask for that, or we did get that increase, correct, in the fee, but we never identified the fact that gave us enough money to add dispatchers, right?
Commissioner, the change that Carroll County experienced was how the existing fee was applied. Recall the going from one fee per account to a fee, my words, per service or device. That's where Carroll County realized an increase in revenue. Unfortunately, to the very best of our projections, the increase that we were hoping for didn't nearly come to fruition. So that was one of the issues we have with trying to fund the position that we previously requested, that there was insufficient additional funds to do so. The state, as part of the Carl Henslow or the Next Gen 911 legislation, they did increase the state rate. And as Jack has shared, that's a different pot of money. That's not money that comes towards the county and its daily operations.
Okay. Is there any?
Steve, if I can just add, again, Mr. Mayor, I think we are all after the same end state. And I think it was said earlier, safety and security for our entire county. And we want to get there. I know I do. And I want to support, and I want to motion ourselves in the direction of supporting to do this, this request. What I'm still, working on is really understanding the overall risks to you, to the county, the return on investment in taking those roles away from you and putting them into the county. What you'll be able to do, like you said, there was inefficiency. How then would you become more efficient on the things that you are doing, and also the effects that we have? And then obviously, like was discussed the last minute, was the resources. And that really has to do with the dollars and what are the dollars associated with getting the resources, the people in place. So there's still, I think, homework to do. But if we do the homework with the intent of meeting this requirement, it'll give us a direction in getting there. If we look at this and say, should we do this or shouldn't we do this, then I feel like we're not going to ever get there. So, my recommendation, if it's doable, is with that in mind, let's get some staff work done and due diligence on just that. What is the cost associated? What's the return on investment? What are the risks associated on both sides? What are the efficiencies and or inefficiencies like the mayor shared? And then that'll tell the story of, yes, we need to do this, and this will be the end cost in getting it done. Until we do that, I think it's premature to say one way or the other. At least that's my 2 cents, maybe 3 for that matter, on this one. So.
Well, with all due respect, didn't we already do that?
Well, may I speak? This is
Yeah, please.
yeah. So
Yeah,
we
go
did
ahead.
that. Yeah, we did that. It was Commissioner Frazier, myself, Councilman Cavacci, some of your staff, and then our our chief of police, Chief Ledwell. So we fleshed all those a lot of that stuff out. Maybe we have this in a different format where if our chief's available, we can maybe share some of the stuff that we all worked out. I think the county shared some things, but we had 2 fairly long meetings about this where we fleshed a lot of stuff out that only a very small percentage of it's being discussed today for obvious reasons. That's how how it's supposed to go, I believe. But if you guys want more information, it sounds like you do, and rightfully so. Maybe there's just a better format for us to have a discussion as a city and a county together. And if you'd like to suggest how you'd like to receive that information, we're willing to bring it forth however you'd like.
Well, if the county received the information from the Board of Commissioners and the commissioners received it, then I'm going to weigh my vote, my recommendation, my direction on those that received it, and take in their insight, from there. Unless we don't have that, then I'd rather see it, myself.
This actually needs to be a request coming in at budget time to be evaluated in our whole budget and where it comes together. Using that information, this is kind of out of sync with the budget at this time.
It is. So that's one of the reasons, and we have some money budgeted for dispatch right now. So that was the reason that we said, the money that we have budgeted for dispatch, we'd be happy to provide to the county as a grant for this year's budget. Which we're a couple of months into, but we'd be happy to provide that because we know that we weren't trying to catch anyone out of the blue. We've got to bring it up sometime. We've been talking about this for months. It's not really I wouldn't say it's kind of out of the blue. We wanted to start the discussion. No one's dropping this responsibility on the county, next month. This was something that we had to bring it up sometime. So I guess whenever we bring it up, it's going to be out of the blue, right? So we brought it up. We want to discuss it. We know that this is a months-long process to discuss how it would happen before the next months-long process of implementing. So we brought it up. We've had, I personally been in 3 meetings. Councilman Cavacci and I met personally with Commissioner Wance and Commissioner Frazier. We talked about it. We talked about what the realm of possibilities were before we dug into the details. We did that. We had two more meetings with a few of your staff, some of our staff, and Commissioner Frazier and Councilman Cavacci and myself again. So we started the process to talk about it. No one meant this to be out of the blue. So I don't know if there's another way you'd like us to bring forth requests or information to you. Please share it. I thought we came to you exactly how we should.
But I appreciate that, Mayor, and I do think like you said, there's no right time to put this out there because no matter when you put it out there, it's going to be, oh, where does this come from? And I do appreciate the way that you and the city have handled this. But I guess I have a question for Scott. What is Commissioner Rothstein asking for that we don't have from the city yet? Because I think we know what the cost will be, especially for 2 dispatchers, because I know you've looked at that. I don't. What is Commissioner Rothstein asking for that we don't have the information on?
Muted. You're muted, Scott. Scott, you're muted.
I promise you, I'm sorry. We believe that we have digested the request, Commissioner, and that's why we're here today to say that you as a board, if the request that's made by the city, in order to, I'll say, support, approve, whatever the right word is, honor the request, Mr. Brown and I have said that we looked at and said we need 2 employees so that we can have 1 additional person on board from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. And of course, the other option would be to deny the request. So we believe that's where we are, that we've got it whittled down to that point. And I do have the similar information that Ted has shared as far as the cost, and which is very much in line with previous requests we've shared as far as the cost per person. So we believe that's where we are. If the board needs more time in order to evaluate some other information, if there's something else that you'd like, we'd be happy to pull that together for you. But we feel that we are there, that based on the request the city has for the 8 hours, the overnight hours, we're sharing in our professional opinion what we need to do that safely and accurately.
And I also like to add, Scott, thank you for that, is that if we decide to move ahead with this today or vote on however we want to handle this, it's going to take 6 to 9 months to train people to get them in that position. So the training has to go through first. So we're not looking at jumping on this if we said yes and somebody's working in there tomorrow. It's not the way it works. It's going to be 6 to 9 months of training. So whoever is hired or 2 people will be hired are brought up to speed so they can center and handle the things that need to be handled. So we're looking down the road. So I mean, on the one hand, I'm looking at that, and I really would not like to delay this further, mainly because of that reason right there. If you've got to wait 6 to 9 months to get somebody in there, and we need to do this, and let's face it, for the past 2 years, we have been talking about adding more 911 operators to our system. I think you've asked for 4, but anyway, we've been talking for at least 2 years to do this. We need more people in that, and that's call center. We just do. This might be the impetus to get at least 2 more people in here. I know they're going to be for extra work and so forth, but we need more people in there besides the point. We need 2 plus probably 4 more. We don't have the money for all that right now, but we need to get started on it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'll tell you, this is definitely not out of the blue. Because you and I talked about this. You've reached out to me, I think a few times, talking directly to me about this. And I think, again, maybe I just flap my guns a little bit too much. Bottom line is, I want to support this. When the mayor says, when somebody who's executing says that they are inefficient in the job that they're doing, and there is a better way of doing it and being more efficient, then we should respect that. And like I think Commissioner Wance shared, it would be great to get something in a holistic approach for the entire county. So if this allows us to go in that direction early on, I'm for this. I just want to make sure that we've crossed the T's, dotted the I's, and if they've all been done, then the due diligence was done, then we should be prepared to vote on this. So.
If I may, the only other thing that has not been finalized, and this decision needs to be done before that, is an agreement between the county and the city to, lay out the parameters of what service we're providing and when and how, et cetera. But that's just the detail after this vote's taken, one way or another, if you decide to go forward.
Are you saying we need an MOU before the vote's taken or after we take the vote? After is okay?
Yeah, it wouldn't be worth working on it if it was really time.
what is the actual dollar amount we're talking about here for two people? That's with all the peripheral, everything involved.
There's Ted.
Ted?
Our,
Just personnel, but everything else involved in it. What does it equate to?
our current estimate would be would be $68,000 a person. So 136,000 with my usual be carefuls. You know, we're self-insured for health insurance. We're self-insured for workers' compensation. So we build in average amounts, but you know, once you take on an employee, you don't know how much you will spend on those things.
Hey, Dick, you're muted. Dick, you're muted.
Any other hidden costs here, computers, stations, everything else that we would?
That would be the cost estimate in the same way we would give it to you for any other position. So there's nothing else I would expect to go with that, other than what Commissioner Wance, 2 positions. Will 2 positions be enough? And to go back to what Scott said, I just want to remind you, so it doesn't get lost in this conversation, this does nothing to improve Scott's basic situation. The pressure on 911 remains the same.
Hey, Scott, when you get into this, and if we do this, what's the can we cross train a couple folks, existing folks, so that 2 would be enough in the event? I mean, can somebody, again, I'm talking, it's been a while since I worked there, let's be clear, but I did put 12 years in over there. But if somebody calls in sick or what have you, is there a way that cross training could be done? Because I can't imagine the law enforcement is too terribly different that they could jump onto that channel and take care of the city of Westminster, or would these 2 people be specific for the city of Westminster?
Commissioner, the way it's proposed today is that this would be 2 additional positions in Jack's shop and would function as his personnel currently do. Part of the agreement that Ms. Wyndham referenced, and we've had these healthy discussions before, was during the hours of operation, the Westminster units would actually switch over and operate on the talk group that Jack's folks currently monitor. The Sheriff Maine, I think, Jack, is the right term. And they would operate in accordance with that. That's part of this agreement that we were referencing. As far as the abilities, no question. Jack's folks are already well qualified to handle it. It's strictly a function of capacity, the capability, that we don't have the physical capacity without additional resources.
Okay.
All right, considering the financial we're under, would the town be willing to make this an ongoing percentage payment and not just a grant for 1 year, but in the agreement have we do an 80-20 on the stormwater management, those type things. We could develop a percentage that would be ongoing to help offset these costs.
That's
would that be something that's across the board on all municipalities or just Westminster?
Well,
would everyone sharing that or just us?
That's what I was just going to say, Mayor. Only way I would look at that is if we do the same thing for the other municipalities that we handle in the same exact way, because it wouldn't be fair to do it for one and not for the other. I know that they have a lot more calls coming in, but if you want to take your suggestion, Commissioner Weaver, then we go back and we look at the other municipalities that we handle this for and we charge them accordingly.
I think it is a good suggestion, but I agree with you, Dennis, and Mr. Mayor, that, would be too cumbersome to try to do. And I don't think it's right if we're not doing it for one, if we're doing it for one, not for them all. I think we've danced around this a lot, and I think we're all in agreement that we want to move forward in being most efficient for the county. Dennis, unless there's any other thoughts, comments. I think the action is yours.
Well, I'll make the motion then that, it's a long motion. I have to get off my phone, so give me a second here. I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the request of Westminster that the county assume dispatch and radio communication operations for the Westminster Police Department between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., as well as approve the creation of 2 additional emergency communication specialist positions assigned to the county's Emergency Communications Center.
Second.
Hey, Mayor. Hey, Joe, are you still on?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was just muted.
Okay. All right. Do you have any personnel over there that only work 11 to 7 that could scoot over under a county pen or not? Or are you filling the slots with whoever from 11 to 7?
That's a question our chief would be better suited to answer. I know that we're being creative with schedules right now because of a couple of vacancies. So I don't have the
Okay.
the definite answer for you there. I can certainly follow up with you afterwards with it.
Yeah, that's fine. I would just, for ease of operation and ease of moving into this, maybe that would help. I don't know. But still, that person would then have to be trained anyway, because they're going to be a dispatcher or 911 center, right? So they're going to have to be cross-trained on all things dispatch anyway, regardless of city or whatever. So, okay. So the fact remains is, I get the motion, and I support this as well. I think it's good. I'm just very concerned. I don't know where the money's coming from. We're in minus areas for 22 and beyond. So this is great, and I support it. Y'all got any idea where you're getting $140,000 a year?
Thanks, Sam. Well, I will say that our number one responsibility as county representatives is public safety, and this is definitely under that category. We just have to figure it out. Maybe with a little bit of help and finesse from Mr. Zaleski, pull this off. But at least we know that the first year we have the support of the county finance. I mean, the Westminster City finances.
Yeah, what's that percentage again?
Actually, I think the question is,
What was the percentage again that we were going to get assistance on the first year from the city of Westminster? I might have missed that. Was there a figure there?
I don't have that figure in front of me. Our chief probably has that, and if I could get that from him while you guys are still here, I can try to do that. But it's basically for 2 dispatchers, so it's a similar. But I don't know. I got to find out what's budgeted for those two dispatchers this fiscal year. I don't have that number in front of me. No, I would have. I was not prepared. I was watching your meeting. I was not prepared to have this discussion. So while I have all the generalities, I don't have all the figures in front of me.
Okay. All right. That's fair. That's fair, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. I just, if it indeed is just dollar for dollar, if that's what you're thinking, that gives us a little time to come up with something here. I don't know. That's why I was asking.
I believe, though, Commissioner Wentz, your comment about where getting money is a rhetorical comment, and there should be no expectations that any of us are going to talk about it. And it's not about Mr. Zaleski finessing, but it's about us making decisions on our priorities, like Commissioner Boucher shared, safety and security being a priority for our county. But I just, I don't want to go overboard with comments, but it's absolutely not a joking matter, and you know that, and we all know that when we talk about money, especially in these challenging times. So it's going to be tough, but taking in fact safety, security, as Eric shared, was a priority or the priority, I just feel like this is the right direction to go. So, thanks.
Okay, now that I think I've been reprimanded, are there any other questions or concerns? If not, I'll call on the vote then. All those in favor of the motion? Okay, that's unanimous to go forward. So now we just have to figure out where that comes from. What are we talking about timeline here, Scott or Jack? Do we have to go through the normal? I mean, you have folks that have put in for positions over there that you can just kind of get into the application bank, or how's that working?
I'm currently too short, Commissioner. We have did a recruitment a process that ended August 7th, I believe. We're prepared to begin interviews next Monday. I'm not sure what we'll get out of that, so it may require another recruitment process.
Okay, so you were hiring for 2 positions anyway, so now you're hiring for 4, I guess, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on this one?
May I
Mr.
say
Mayor, I
something?
appreciate you. Yeah, I appreciate you jumping on, Joe, at
Yeah.
last minute. Thank you. Thank you for that. I know in all things COVID, things aren't easy these days. So we do appreciate you coming on, answering some of those questions.
Thanks for inviting me to come on, and I wanted to say thank you to all of you. I know, we always don't get to places in a straight happy line, but I'm glad we have everyone's support today.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll talk later on. And I guess we'll get staff now to start working on a MOU in reference to that. And we'll see where it goes. And we'll have to reallocate some funding in order to pick up 2 additional pins for Carroll County now. So
For next year, for FY20.
Right.
FY21
Right.
costs will be covered by the city of Westminster.
right, and I just again, I want to be clear. If we get that figure to see if it's money, if it's dollar for dollar, that would help us out. I don't know if it is or not, but I'm sure there's a little bit of a difference there.
I mean, I would believe that it was our county's costs that are relevant to this conversation.
Right. My understanding of the conversations that we've had, that they were going to cover what our costs were for that first year. And that was my understanding. That's the way I thought it was said. I guess Roberta's shaking her head. She was in the meeting. She thought the same thing. So, I mean, that's what I'm looking at.
Okay. Well, that makes it easy then, as far as the next year goes, but we'll have to sharpen some pencils for the year after that. Okay.
Well, for
All right.
public disclosure, the mayor's mother and my mother played bingo together, and that had no influence over my vote.
Okay. All right. Nick, thank you, Scott and Jack. Off you go. Got some work to do now, and we'll cross those bridges when we need to get to them. Thank you very much. All right. Next on our agenda is the FY21 annual transportation plan grant award. And I guess that is Jeff Castingway who will lead the charge here. And then he can turn it over to whoever. Jeff, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioner, and rest of the board. We're providing you today. We just received our updated grant allocation from the state. They've changed their rules in the spirit of trying to find money. The state has cut some finances, some financial support from us, from our grants. Luckily, we have a few other things in place that are going to help us through this upcoming year with the grant, but since it's different from what we proposed to you all back in March, I'm going to pass this over to Stacy to go ahead and provide you the details of the where we are with the updated grant so we can get back to the state for acceptance.
Good afternoon, commissioners. We were in front of you back on March 5th in person in like real life, and which is wild now, and received your approval for the application and the acceptance of the funds for the FY21 ATP. However, the state's budget, as along with everybody else's budget, looks a little different. So we wanted to come back in front of you. So the state has decreased their match amount for operating grants. If you look at the first table on your briefing, the FY21 operating budget, you will see the decrease in the state portion of the grant match. So unfortunately, we need to make up that difference. However, the good news, I'm not asking for money. So the second part of why we are in front of you is that we have also received transit-specific CARES funding of over $5 million, which can be used for all overmatch. So technically the county portion of the grant funding is increasing, but with our overall budget, we don't need to worry about finding more funds. The second table is the capital budget. The state pulled all of their funding from capital projects. So good news, we were awarded 3 buses, but bad news, we need to cover the state's 20 or 10% of the bus. So that also affects the preventative maintenance. We were awarded the 150, but we need to cover the state's 10%. So with all that said, the overall transit budget is big enough that we don't need any additional funds to cover the loss of the state match. And the CARES funds will cover the overmatch for the next few years, which gives us a really good cushion for uncertain transit things. The CARES fund itself, the uses and regulations are a little cloudy and ever changing, just like all other CARES funds that we are dealing with, except the use to cover overmatch. So the timeline isn't clear. MTA is recommending to use it within 3 years, but FTA can pull it if they feel necessary. So we're focusing on the use of overmatch for the time being because it's the easiest and most definitive thing that we've heard we can use it for. Yes, Commissioner Vance.
I missed that last 2 minutes or something. Maybe it's just me, but you were kind of muted there. Maybe it's just my system.
Where did you lose me?
I don't know. Last couple sentences, Stacy, I lost you. But if nobody else did, keep going.
Did anybody else lose me? No. Okay. I was talking about the CARES funding. We're trying to spend it in 3 years and use it for overmatch. Essentially, is what I said. So that's a lot of changes. There's a lot to throw at you all at one time, but the quick overview is that our grants have remained flat. We were awarded 3 buses. The state has reduced their match to operating and eliminated it from capital, and will receive over $5 million in CARES funding to be used mainly for overmatch. So we are here for your acceptance of the FY21 ATP award and the CARES award. Questions?
So Stacy, as you've already said, costing us no additional money out of our pocket. The additional money is actually coming from CARES money that was given to transit. And we have actually more money than we need, but you're also kind of unsure about how that money could be used in the future.
Correct.
But for right now, we're covered.
Yes. Yes.
Will we need to adjust next year's or the following year's budgets to address this? I think Ted just came on, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that. So in the short term, we're okay. And we don't know long term, but there's at least a possibility that once the state has backed out of this money, as they're trying to figure out their budgets, it never comes back to us again. Now, I don't know that, not saying we should expect it, but it's not a crazy thing to wonder about.
Yeah, I agree with that. We've seen that with our preventative maintenance money. They decreased that, 2 years ago, and that hasn't come back up. So I would agree with Ted on that as far as thinking outward.
And just to keep it rosy for everybody, is just to keep in mind, as we continue to physical distance on our buses, if ridership starts increasing back, I mean, we're only at about 50% ridership, maybe even less at this point. But as that increases, we're going to have, we are run a very expensive program, very expensive system. We currently still only have 50% capacity per bus. So as things increase, we have to put more buses on the road with less people on them. But we still feel the way we've been seeing for the trends for this year, we should be fine. But we will keep you, and we're in touch with management budget on a regular basis. But we don't want you to think that we're completely out of the woods, but we feel that we're comfortable so far based off of today's ridership. But we'll keep you informed if something starts changing in the direction that is unfavorable.
Okay, with that cheery news, I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners accept the FY21 Annual Transportation Plan, Grant, and the CARES Act Transit Awards.
Second.
All right, anything else on this one? All those in favor? There you go. Unanimous.
Thank you,
Thanks, Stacy.
commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioners. Debbie Stanford, thank you for being on to be there to assist. Always great to have you in the background.
Okay. Surprisingly, that gets us to the end of our agenda items. So I don't think we have any public comment. I forgot to ask before lunch, but I don't think we do. Nobody yelled at us. So with that, we'll go into open admin.
Commissioner, I have one other thing.
So
I got one other thing on my agenda.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Mid-Maryland Workforce.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry about that. I skipped ahead. All right. Dissolution of the Mid-Maryland workforce area and development of new Carroll County workforce area. Sorry about that. Jack, take the lead in this.
Just for us a couple of minutes here, I want to give a little bit of history on the program, and Denise is going to talk to you, and then our director is, we're going to talk to you about where we want to go with this. About 20 years ago, when I first came, we had this program called JTPA, Job Training Partnership Act, and it was under HR. When I came, as you know, workforce is extremely important. It's our #1 priority for companies to come. And it became under economic development, and we changed it to Business Improvement Resource Center. At that point, we had to go under one of the counties. So it was either Frederick County or Howard County. I met with Jim Roby probably 3 or 4 times, and Jim and I worked out an agreement that all the money would flow through Howard County, the consortium money. We had an agreement, we did an agreement, and it's been like that for about 20 years. There was an audit last year, and they recommended that we do the single audit that Carroll County break away. Roberta's been involved with this, and we've met with County Executive Calvin Bell, and he said that we need to break away and do it ourselves, and we're excited about because we can control our own destiny here. Denise will go through it, but it'll be we'll be in charge. We'll have to do some administrative, but Roberta, myself, and Denise, we've been working with Howard County, I guess, Roberta, for 5 or 6 months now, I guess, on this agreement. So Denise, you want to go from here?
I'm not hearing you, Denise, but that doesn't mean anything because apparently everybody heard Stacy and I didn't.
Nope.
I cannot hear Denise myself.
Check your settings, Denise, up at the top right corner of the little gear. your microphone. I think there was a Microsoft update last night for security purposes, and I think that messed up some people's settings.
Is this where Lyburn starts singing?
Only if he's muted.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna switch over here. Can you hear me now? Yes, okay. So as Jack said, this came about from an audit last year, and we had some preliminary meetings with the Department of Labor and all of the entities there, along with Howard County workforce development area representatives. So in essence, we do feel that this is going to be a positive thing because it will allow Carroll County to be more focused in our outreach to businesses and citizens. We've had to have an approach, which is a dual approach. You know, Howard County has been very gracious over the last 20 years and allowed us to basically split the funding 50-50 down the middle. And that's how we've operated. So what will this entail? Well, we will be doing a new agreement for the period of time from this year through the end of this fiscal year. And we will be considered a sub-grantee to Howard County with the intention of moving forward and establishing an independent workforce development area. What it will require is the Board of Commissioners to agree to this request from Howard County. And we will be drafting a letter that we will be asking you to send to the Department of Labor. And that would then go to the governor, who would have final approval and authority on the separation of Howard and Carroll County into two distinct workforce development areas. And at the same time, what we'll be doing is working on developing our own workforce development board, which I do think will be very positive, and having representatives from Carroll County businesses to provide insight and oversight to the Workforce Development Center. So the other thing is that we have been working on a sub-grantee agreement that's been looked at by Debbie Staniford, as well as Tim Burke and ourselves, to be able to present back to Howard County for this existing fiscal year, so that we can continue to move forward with our joint plan as a subrecipient. So then what we'll be doing throughout the remainder of this fiscal year is working on devising our own workforce development plan that would be independent of Howard County. So that's what we need to do. And we're asking today, we're just presenting this information to you about the request from Howard County to separate. They basically had decided that, you know, they did not want to be in the role of having oversight to a subrecipient. And so they had asked for this request, and the Department of Labor is recommending and supporting it as well. So I don't know if you have any questions for myself or Heather. Heather's been involved as the new manager of Burke, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
I actually think this is probably a very good thing to be happening. I mean, we're developing different than Howard County is as far as the workforce, and this gives us some independence of our own here. And I agree with this.
Yeah, same here, Dick, and welcome, Heather, to the team. And nobody tells Carroll County story better than Carroll County. And we, you know, it's not that Howard County's letting go of us. It's, I think, vice versa. And I look forward to focusing Burke and our attention directly on Howard County for Howard County and the region. So definitely support this one.
With that, I'm going to move the Board of Commissioners approve the dissolution of the Mid-Maryland Workforce area effective June 30th, 21, and adopt the development of the new Carroll County workforce area beginning July 1st, 2021.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Further comments on this one? All those in favor? Unanimous. All right. Thank you,
Commissioner, this
Denise.
is a really good move for us. You know, we can control our own destiny here.
All right,
Yes, thank you
thanks,
for your
Jack.
support.
Yep. And thanks for being on, Heather, even though we didn't need your expertise. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
And that's twice today Jack has improved his looks.
Okay.
It's the best part of my day.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
All right, now I think I might be at the end of the agenda. I don't know. I've kind of lost track of things here, but I think we're at the end. Is that correct?
Yeah. But
All
now
right.
we're, yep.
All right. So with that, we'll go into open admin, and I know we have several things in open admin. I've got, before I hand it off, I've only got one thing, and that's, I actually have two things. We need to adopt the closed minutes from last week when we went in for land acquisition, right? That was last week. That was the railroad bed thing. Yep. So I need, or whatever it was. Anyway, I need a motion and second to adopt the closed from last week.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, motion second on that. All in favor of those closed minutes? I've been reading down through them here. Just, I want to make sure I read them. Okay. All in favor? All right. Okay. That's all I have for open. I had something else, but I'm going to wait and go with that later on in another closed one we're in. So Roberta, I know you've got several things, so go ahead.
There's another set of closed minutes that somehow we missed approving them.
Okay.
From April. They're in your packet as well. So if you'll approve those, I would be appreciative.
All right. Okay, you're going to have to bear with me on these because I got to bring them up so that we do it right. Yeah, from April the 23rd, that was closed also.
For
And
contract.
you say for contractual, okay. You say we missed these, Roberta?
Somehow with the staff, we had virtually no one staff-wise, so somehow we just missed.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes from April 23rd.
Second.
All right. I just read down through them. I want to make sure what we're voting on. That's been a long time ago. Okay. All right. Did you all see those? Everybody good? All right. All those in favor? Okay. Now, Roberta.
And I sent you a couple letters. We've received a request from the Greater Baltimore Committee. They're celebrating their 65th anniversary here soon, and they wanted the various member jurisdictions to give them a little congratulatory letter. So that was included in your recent email to you. Hopefully you're okay with that. And also a welcome sort of intro note to be signed by the commissioners for the emergency management guide. And hopefully you're okay with signing that as well. Are you okay with both of those, gentlemen? Okay, looks like everyone pretty much is. And then
You don't need votes on them, do you, Roberta? You just need we're good with that stuff, right?
right, Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And then there's a letter of support. So for the last couple of years, fiscal years, we've received money from the governor in his budget for bond bills for the Public Safety Training Center. They did it a little unusually. They sort of chunked it out over 3 or 4 years, and each year we sort of thank them for having given it to us in the past year and ask them to continue it. There's a letter that I sent earlier today that just reaffirms that same thing. We've signed the same letter for the last several years, so if you're okay with signing that as well. Okay. And that's all I got.
All right, let's quickly go down through the, anybody else have anything for open admin? Sorry, anything for open admin? All right, if not, let's quickly go down through the agendas for the upcoming weeks. If I can get to them. My computer's acting a little strange today. All right, week of September the 14th. Monday the 14th is a Transit Advisory Council meeting. That's Commissioner Frazier at 3 p.m. Tuesday, September the 15th, Planning and Zoning at 9 a.m. Commissioner Rothstein. 10 a.m. MACO Initiative Subcommittee meeting. That's myself. And then at 2 p.m. is Veterans Advisory Council meeting. That's Commissioners Rothstein and Weaver. Okay, Wednesday, September the 16th, there's a MACO Interim Legislative Committee, and that is myself and Commissioner Rothstein at 11 a.m. Also, an opioid senior policy group meeting, Commissioner Frazier, 2 p.m. Governor's Workforce Development Board meeting at 3:30 p.m., Commissioner Rothstein. And then the Carroll Community College Board of Trustees meeting is at 4 p.m. with Commissioner Weaver on that one. Thursday the 17th, we go into open session. Certainly we'll be talking COVID. We have impact fee ordinance as well. We're going to be having the public hearing for our Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services. We have some Union Mills, a change order request for Union Mills main house, pipe video inspection services. And that's all that we have right now. I'm sure that will increase. Friday the 18th is the Davis Library rededication at Mary Lou Dewey Park. That's at 3 p.m. Myself and Commissioner Frazier and Commissioner Rothstein has the podcast for that week. Any additions or corrections there? All right, hearing none, we'll whip into the week of the 21st of September. Tuesday, the 22nd, Chamber Business Breakfast. That's Commissioner Boucher's breakfast at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, the 22nd. Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area, virtual meeting, 2 p.m. That's Commissioner Boucher. Thursday, we go back into open session. We're going to have a recognition of a long tenured employee that morning. Then we'll go into things COVID. We have an annexation in the Manchester area. We have budget discussion as well. That's on the schedule. And I'm sure that list will grow. And I've got the podcast for that week. Any corrections on that? Okay. So with all that being said, now I think I'm getting to where I should be getting here. We need to go into, is there anything else for open admin? I want to remind folks that we will be having our 9 a.m. 9/11 ceremony tomorrow morning, and that's on the website, and there's a press release that's out on that as well. And I want to remind folks of the event in Hampstead that Commissioner Weaver brought up that's occurring tomorrow evening as well, that candlelight vigil, which is also a great event. So make sure you take the time to pause and reflect on the unfortunate incident, 20 years ago now, and all things that have happened as a result of that. So take a little time to do that tomorrow. All right. With that being said, we need to go into closed for possible land acquisition.
No.
What is it? I can't.
Pre-bid award contract negotiation.
What is it?
Pre-bid award contract negotiation.
There you go. I can't see my agenda. It has disappeared off my screen. So I'm
I
shooting
motion
from
we go into close for that.
for that. All right, I'll second it while I'm lit up. All those in favor of going into closed? And then I need a motion to adjourn after that. Is that correct? Is
Motion to
anything-
adjourn after that.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor to adjourn after that? Very good. Everybody stay safe. Have a good weekend coming up, and we'll see you all next week. So, Greg, with that, you can pass the torch to Roberta, and you can take us off the air.